Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, fuck off. Det var næsten sådan ordene lød, da jeg for et år siden stod på den selv samme talerstol og sagde meget klart, at hvis Trump...
I'm sorry, colleague, this is against our rules. As much as you might feel, or the room might feel in this, we have clear rules about cuss words, language that is inappropriate in this room. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it is unacceptable, even if you might have strong political feelings about this.
Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland have been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand. Mr. Trump, fuck off.
I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that, folks. Also, yeah, probably should give a warning about language. But anyway, today's date, January 21st, 2026. This is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here, we inside it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast, which means we do only cite from reputable sources with award-winning. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, now CBS News, The Blaze, The Beast, wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. We give you nothing but the facts. At the same time, we do try to watch our language here, but as you just saw in like the first minute or so of this podcast, that's going to be out the window tonight. So if you are not for offensive language, you might want to mute it to us another day, but there also might be things that might be shown that may be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So yes, it's been a year. Jesus, it's been a year. A year since a bunch of idiots decided that Taco deserved another swing of the bat at the presidency. And all I can sit there and say to you MAGA cultists, you conservatives, you people that swear up and down things are better, are they though? I mean, they really are not. At the same time, especially at the World Economic Forum in Davos, well, I should say Taco really didn't get the hero's welcome he was hoping to get, because in Taco's mind, he is nothing more than a dictator. And as you guys can literally and figuratively see, as you know, old man walking from what looks like Marine One, no one is there to greet freaking soul outside of Secret Service and of course whatever security is there. But yes, as you guys can see, no fanfare, no parade, nobody saying we love you, no red hats. It's almost as if he's in a country that isn't brainwashed, or he's nowhere near his cult. But as he's on his way to the Economic Forum to speak, and trust me, there is a lot from that, which we will get into just because of the fact of the matter. He said some things. Outside of committing his war crime in Venezuela, he decided to go ahead and bring back up the one thing that we all knew was coming. He wants Greenland the same way. Actually, let me say that back. I was about to say in the same way Erica Kirk wants the baby, but that's wrong. That is wrong. Let me say differently. Taco wants Greenland the same way he wants to be, the same way he wants to pardon himself after his term is over. Let's say that, because I'll leave the Erica Kirk and JD Vance jokes for later. But anyway, he had always something to say, because when he's got a podium, he feels like he's loved, but really he's just a piece of shit.
Would you like me to say a few words of Greenland? I was going to leave it out of the speech, but I think I would have been reviewed very negatively. I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay, now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland.
Uh-oh. Did we get kicked off? Well, not sure what happened there, folks, so I apologize profusely. I guess NBC decided to kill it.
Let's bring it back here to
So, but yes, and I apologize for that, guys. I'm not sure what happened with the NBC website, but it's okay. But to basically say that all about, he sat there and said, can only protect Greenland because Greenland cannot protect themselves from the boogeyman that is Russia and China. Have we heard this story before? Absolutely, because that's Trump's stick. Trump's stick is this whole thing of only I can save this country. Only we can save Venezuela because we committed a war crime by basically kidnapping its president. And now we're basically hoarding its resources in a Qatar bank. But I digress. And what is he saying now about Greenland? Oh, we need to protect Greenland because if we don't, Russia and China will invade and then they'll be in our northern hemisphere. Jesus Christ. Am I the only one? Am I the only one? And I can't be the only one. And I hope I'm not the only one. Is anybody else tired of the shame shtick that Trump does? He plays this fear card. If we don't do it, Russia or China will do it. And let's just be honest. Has Russia or China really done anything? I mean, outside of Russia invading Ukraine, China making deals with African countries. Outside of that, who have they invaded? Outside of that, what else have they done? Sure, Russia's committing a war crime by basically saying they own rights to a country, which they do not. But outside of that, I don't see them going after Greenland anytime soon. And China, let's be honest about China. China right now is looking pretty good. Europe is starting to look toward China. Other markets are starting to go to China. China is now looking at Brazil and saying, we would love to buy your soybeans because we will not buy American soybeans. Right now, China is the mass producer of a lot of goods that still come to the U.S. And it is amazing to me that he keeps on using China as a boogeyman when China's like, why do we need to invade? We're good. We don't need anything else from anybody. You need us more than we need you. And we have other markets we can go to. But that's what Trump does. He does this whole shtick that is fear-mongering. Only if we don't do this, someone else will. And I won't use force to invade Greenland. Really? We've seen what you did with Venezuela. So this whole thing of I won't invade a country, yes, you will. Because we know, because you are a flaccid, senile. But probably. You are a senile old man that really should be put in a home somewhere. But yet, anytime he speaks, it is literally watching an 80-plus-year-old man ramble on. Even more so that in the country and in the nation of Greenland, this is how they feel right now.
Of Greenland.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
The president threatening Denmark and 7 other allies with escalating tariffs until the U.S. can negotiate a deal to take control of the Arctic island. But Europe now threatening to deploy its own, including a so-called trade bazooka that could ban U.S. goods from European markets. Still, the president today optimistic about a deal.
I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy. But we need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security. It's very important.
NBC's Ellison Barber is in Greenland tonight.
Here in the capital city of Greenland, if you go into a lot of the shops in this area, you will see signs, merchandise with a very clear message, just like this: Greenland is not for sale.
They all say it's crazy, but also many are scared.
President Trump argues Denmark cannot defend the massive island from Russian and Chinese threats, taking the unprecedented step this week of posting private messages from other world leaders, including one from French President Macron, praising President Trump's moves in Syria while adding, "I do not understand what you're doing on Greenland," and inviting Trump to meet him in Paris.
They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely.
All of it flowing from a lengthy news conference the president held today to mark the anniversary of his second inauguration, focusing on the economy, pointing to rising wages and gas prices at a 4-year low.
Gasoline prices have come per gallon way down. When that happens, everything else comes down.
With polls showing most Americans not satisfied with the cost of living.
They created the affordability problem, and we are solving it. We have solved a lot of it.
And there is another foreign leader text message making news tonight. A presidential text with Norway's prime minister released on Monday shows President Trump appearing to link his push for Greenland with his frustration with not being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize this year. The president insisting that he believes the country has, quote, tremendous control over who receives the prize, despite their denials.
And what's actually amazing, folks, is the simple fact of the matter, that's what he's worried about. But I should have got the Nobel Peace Prize. I ended 8 wars. No, you didn't. But you somehow believe you did. But do you see the fact of this, and this is the thing about it. Yes, Trump's an idiot, beyond a shadow of a doubt. But he's a great con man. But look what he's done to a country that literally is just there because he wants it. Imperialism at its freaking finest. And that's just and guys, I am just saying that's being honest. I know my camera froze up, so bear with me for a second on this. But what I'm getting at is, folks, is just that it's imperialism at its finest. Taco wants to sit there and basically wants to sit there and be like, oh, well, I want it and I can get it because I've already gotten away with one war crime. What's wrong with another one? And that's what he's saying. And that's what he's saying for Greenland. He is pretty much saying, oh, I can go ahead and do it again because who's going to stop me? My own party won't even stop me. And it's true. They actually tried to pass a bill to, they actually tried to pass a bill to restrict his ability to call the army in. And of course, the Senate, it went down to tiebreaker. Who was tiebreaker? Of course, the newly about to be 4th-time daddy, still a couch fucker, still probably banging Erica Kirk, JD Vance, of course being the tiebreaker and shooting down the bill that would have actually reined in Taco from actually calling in the army for anything else. And that's effing scary. Because he's already committed, and the thing about it is where a lot of people don't get, he's already committed one war crime. And that's just one of many things that he should have been impeached on a long ass time ago. But at the same time, he still did not waste a moment at the World Economic Forum to sit there and, explain his hatred for Somalians as he tried to point out a fact which, because of the timing, another story comes out, makes me wonder, and we talked about this last week, but I'll just play the clip where he was pretty much full of himself.
Importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that they turned out to be higher IQ than we thought? I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates, they're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil. And they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. Companies are petrified. So they say, just give them the boat. We'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out, we blow them out of the water.
Now you see, rambling. That's all it was. It was straight. It was literally straight to the It was the Somalians. It was the Somalians. The pirates. We know they're pirates. We blew them out of the water. It never ceased to amaze me that imagine these are individuals, countrymen, politicians, people representing their countries at this economic forum, and you've got to hear that idiot ramble on about, well, those Somalians, they took out $19 billion. They took out $19 billion. It was a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse, and we caught it, and now we're going to do something about it. Really? And I love how the GOP, I love how conservatives always talk about, we got to find fraud, waste, and abuse. We said one story last week about Mississippi. We sat there and said in Mississippi, there was a $77 million fraud case because $77 million was supposed to go help needy families through food assistance, stamps, benefits, all that matter. It was funneled and it was misused for luxury living by a former wrestler, and then who also is pleading guilty. We said that was in Mississippi. The same case that involved that POS Brett Favre, and the fact that what they used also used nut funding to help build another facility at a school his daughter was attending. And it is amazing to me, out of the biggest cases of fraud, waste, and abuse, Republicans don't talk about that. And I guarantee, because this story is also freshly new and from Minnesota, that Taco won't be talking about this either. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet the welfare queen of Minnesota that seemed to swindle a lot of people, or I should say, swindle the state.
The woman prosecutors say was the mastermind of Minnesota's biggest COVID-era fraud scheme. 44-year-old Amy Bach is not part of the Somali community. Last year, she was convicted of orchestrating a $250 million plot to defraud a government program to feed hungry children. CBS News Minnesota investigative reporter Jonah Kaplan spoke with that woman exclusively. He joins us this morning from Minneapolis. Jonah, really important interview. I mean, you spoke to her in the jail cell. Break down the story for us.
Well, look, Kelly, good morning. And when you think about all that's been going on here in Minneapolis with the surge of all these federal agents, it's all because, at least according to the administration, it's this fraud investigation. And the Somali community has been at the forefront of the investigation because most of those who have been either charged or convicted in the fraud schemes are Somali. But Amy Bach is not Somali, but federal prosecutors blaming her for being the mastermind, at least, of one of these schemes. It's rare to speak with someone in federal custody, but Amy Bach told us she defended her actions, but she has some regrets.
We were allowed 1 hour to speak with Amy Bach over a video call from her Minnesota jail cell.
Now I can hear you, yes.
Until she was arrested in 2022, Bach led Feeding Our Future. The now infamous nonprofit signed up restaurants and caterers, many from Minnesota's large Somali community, to receive taxpayer money for providing meals to children in need.
During COVID, for obvious reasons, parents were allowed to come and pick up meals. So we suddenly were able to reach more children.
But prosecutors said it turned into something else, the nation's largest COVID-era fraud, with Bach as its mastermind.
Are you the mastermind of this scheme?
Absolutely not. I believe in accountability. If I had done this, I would have pled guilty. I wouldn't have gone to trial. I wouldn't have put my children and my family through what we've been through. I've lost everything.
While Bach's attorney provided this video showing stacks of food, prosecutors say Bach and the businesses she recruited stole tens of millions of federal dollars, spending it on luxury cars, real estate ventures, and vacations.
I wish I could go back and do things differently, stop things, catch things. At that point in time, I believed we were doing everything in our power to protect the program.
But in 2021, Bach sued the state agency that oversaw the meal program, alleging its scrutiny of Somali applicants was, quote, discriminatory.
How do you think state officials took that?
Nobody wants to be labeled as being racist.
Minnesota officials told a state watchdog the threat of legal consequences and negative media attention intimidated them into easing off.
The notion that a state government is paralyzed and has to allow this level of fraud because they were afraid of what I might do in a lawsuit is preposterous.
Humbly welcome Amy Bach.
In Minnesota's large Somali community, one leader called her a modern-day Robin Hood.
The community deserves this. The children need this.
In 2019, the nonprofit submitted $3 million worth of meal claims. 2 years later, it submitted nearly $200 million.
All of a sudden, you're cutting $200 million worth of checks. How do you not see that as major red flags and keep this going?
We relied on the state. We told the state, this site is going to operate at this address, this day, this time, and this number of children. The state would then tell us that's approved.
Prosecutors also accused Bach of collecting bribes and kickbacks from meal site operators. At trial, they revealed text messages where she compared feeding our future to the mob.
Are you a mob boss?
Absolutely not. No.
Were you personally benefiting from any of it?
I collected my salary, and that was all that was collected.
Didn't federal agents find gold jewelry, cash in your closet?
They found minimal jewelry. I believe it was like 2 pair of earrings, a bracelet, a watch. There was some cash there.
At trial, Bach took the stand, but the jury didn't buy her story. Within hours, they convicted her on all counts. Last month, a judge ordered her to forfeit more than $5 million in proceeds from the fraud.
Now, what is amazing, ladies and gentlemen, that person, that name will never be said anywhere else. Because when it comes to GOP and conservatives and fraud, waste, and abuse, they will never mention this person. But they'll mention, oh, well, Somalians were also involved in this too, and they're a part of it too. But just like that claim right there, guys. And again, how do you go from 3.4 million in 1 year and then 200 million the next year? At the same time, you swear up and down you have no idea what's going on. I can see why they convicted you, and it's kind of hard to feel bad for you. But what I'm saying about this, guys, is this is where I say it's all misleading, because Fox News and everywhere else that's on the right side is going to run with this and sit there and say, well, see, they had to be involved because look, they're involved in this scheme, and that woman took 200 million. Yes, a white woman did. A white woman funneled $200 million to other people in the organization that might have been Somalian. But what the headline is going to read, Somalians defrauded the system. And I always find it funny where it's always in the GOP side of fraud, waste, and abuse. It's always people of color. Always people of color. That was the whole thing. Remember when President Obama way back then wanted to give tax cuts? What was Fox News saying? Oh, he wants to go through the ghetto and give people money and Obama phones and all of these things because they voted for him. And if they never voted for him, they would never gave it to him. And yet, Taco gives away $40 billion to Argentina. Nobody blinks an eye. You know, he wants to give more money to Venezuela. He wants to give money to Israel. He wants to give money everywhere else, but doesn't want to help American citizens. But yet, in the world of fraud, waste, and abuse, it cannot be a white person. Oh no. Even though we covered 2 stories, one out of Mississippi, where that trial is happening right now, and of course, this one happening in Minnesota. Both multi-million-dollar schemes, both were supposed to be funding to actually help feed families. Both were headed by white people. One thing the GOP will simply not say, because you know why? It goes against exactly what the narrative is. And their narrative is, if it's a person of color, they must be up to nothing good. But if it's a white person, they make mistakes. And that's the bullshit. But anyway, speaking of bullshit, going back to basically Trump and the Greenland, the State Department, I don't know why these people do interviews, I never know. But again, they basically got on to ABC News trying to sugarcoat, hey, if Greenland sides with Trump, it's all sunshine and rainbows. And trust me, that's exactly how the guy sounds when I play this.
Deputy spokesperson Tommy Pigott is here for more on this whole issue. Tommy, thank you for joining us. You know, as it stands now, NATO would be obligated to respond under Article 5 if Russia or China attacked Greenland. So what specifically could the U.S. do if it controlled Greenland that it can't do now?
Well, the president has outlined a lot of this in terms of the Golden Dome setup that would be necessary, the security of the Arctic, the investments we see from the United States. And ultimately, this is about having hard conversations about our security with our allies and our partners. And that's who you have these conversations with. It's similar in some ways to the fact that you had President Trump calling on a 5% increase for GDP from NATO allies. And we've seen our allies step up and provide that, which has led to a stronger alliance. So the president's been clear that the United States having Greenland would be better for the security of the Greenlanders, for the United States, for NATO as a whole.
Walk me through why. I just talked to a Danish minister there, a member, and she says the U.S. can build that Golden Dome infrastructure without taking over Greenland. They already have the permission to do it.
Well, President Trump's been very clear in outlining that there are certain capabilities the United States has and capabilities that can be best implemented if the United States were to own Greenland. That's just the fact of the matter, and it's something the president has argued very persuasively. And ultimately, this is about having a stronger NATO, stronger allies, stronger security for the United States, for Greenlanders, for NATO. And it really goes back to this whole year that we've seen from President Trump of having these conversations, raising these issues, and raising these issues in a way that lead to concrete results, just like that 5% burden sharing that we saw with NATO that led to a revitalized NATO alliance and was only possible because of the president's leadership.
And let's talk a little bit more about NATO, because some are concerned that Trump threatening military action against a NATO ally could lead to an end of the alliance. I want to play some of what a former Danish minister said on ABC News last night.
Well, Trump, we are with you. We want to be your allies. We have the same adversaries in the Arctic, Russia mainly, but also China. We are investing. You got your win. You know, let's work together instead of threatening each other. It's really making all of the West less strong. We should be together and not fighting each other. I'm sure that Putin and Xi are just looking at us right now with a small smile on their face, and we shouldn't be doing this.
So she says Putin and Xi are smiling because NATO is fighting each other. What's your response to the idea that this is weakening and maybe even dismantling eventually NATO to Putin and Xi's advantage?
Well, President Trump has done more to revitalize the NATO alliance than anybody, including, like I mentioned, those 5% GDP defense contributions that lead to a stronger NATO alliance. So that's what President Trump has done. That's only possible because of his leadership. And this is about addressing modern threats in the Arctic, essential to our security. President Trump has outlined that. And when this happens, when President Trump is able to acquire Greenland, as his goal is, that will lead to better security for NATO, for Greenlanders, for the United States. This is about addressing these modern day threats the United States faces.
And what happens if the president orders troops there against a NATO ally?
Well, look, ultimately, as the press secretary and president have both said, they're not ruling out any sort of options, but he's also been clear about conversations to acquire Greenland. And he's also been clear that these conversations are going to continue in Davos. So I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals or speculate, but the president has been clear that he wants to see a strong NATO that is spending and also a NATO that's able to defend against modern threats.
President Trump is also set to hold a formal signing ceremony to constitute the Gaza Board of Peace. But this charter draft circulated online doesn't directly mention Gaza, and it appears to signal a broader mandate. Now some are speculating that Trump's trying to build an alternative to the United Nations. Is he?
Well, look, this Board of Peace was something that was under a UN mandate that, again, was only possible because of President Trump's leadership. The global coalition that we saw to bring about that ceasefire in Gaza was only possible because of President Trump. And we saw the release of hostages. We saw the humanitarian assistance that was able to enter Gaza without being looted by Hamas. And we've seen the president lead on ending 8 conflicts in just a year. That's the president's leadership here. The president's clear he wants the UN to go back to basics in terms of solving peace, being part of these discussions. Unfortunately, UN hasn't been. But President Trump's leadership has ended these conflicts, and he's looking to continue that, to build on that progress and see lasting peace.
Tell me.
I got to stop it right there because Jesus Christ. You know what kills me? Outside of the fact that he just looks like he should be on How to Catch a Predator. But the level of just ass kissing, and pardon my French, the level of ass kissing, spitting, of course, everything was wrong. You know, The president ended 8 conflicts. He didn't. It's been proven. Even the countries where he tried to name had conflicts were like, we was beefing with y'all. We was beefing. We didn't know. Apparently he knew, but we didn't know. At the same time, the Board of Peace. Oh, Jesus Christ. Here's the thing. Here's the scary part about this, folks, is that the Board of Peace that Taco would love to have includes, and I kid you not, it comes with a price tag. $1 billion, as he calls a pledge to join the Board of Peace. And yes, he has extended the Board of Peace, invites, I should say, to Iran, to Russia, and China. The same, and a lot of people say, what? Yeah, the same countries he says are threats, he supposedly is offering join the Board of Peace because, you know, he's I do peace through strength. I'm a peaceful president. I don't like war. You are so full of shit. And even more so, your state director, your state deputy director, I should say. I'll say this much. I don't know how his lips and tongue are not brown from all the ass kissing he has done to basically show up. And this is the part where I was getting at, to show the president off. And this is the part where I sat there and said it on this podcast. And I said it for 2 years straight during Biden-Harris's term. And I sat there and said at the end, where voting was going to come back up again, I sat there and said, and I will say it again, the last thing you want to do is give Trump a second shot at the presidency. The last thing you want to do is give a villain a redo, because they'll learn. Trump learned from his first term. I'm going to gather all the smartest people. I'm going to gather everybody that knows what they're doing because I know smart people. I have a talent for seeing smart people, and I'm going to have them in my administration. And yet his first administration was a effing disaster. But Trump 2.0, what did he learn? You don't need the smartest people in certain positions. You need loyalists. You need folks that are going to fall on the sword. You need folks that are going to kiss your ass every time you bend over and spread. You want folks to say your name like it's an advertisement or a brand marketing deal. He wanted loyalists. And that's what you're seeing in every part of his administration. Oh, the president's so great. God bless our president. He is showing strength. No, he's not. He's probably one Big Mac away from self-deleting at this point. Not to wish death upon the man, but let's be honest. If you're calling Trump healthy, I want your credentials checked, because he looks like an expired white privilege that's been in a tanning booth too long. But even more so, his loyalists, again, are doing the work, propping him up, making him look like he's great, while the rest of the world sit there and says, fuck off, Donald. Which a lot of people feel the same way here, because what was supposed to be a great discussion at the World Economic Forum was nothing more than Donald Trump going there, wiping his ass on everything, then walking out like he's the hero. And now all of a sudden, we might see the end of NATO, because that's what's going to happen, guys. Honestly, that if Taco decided to do the same thing to Greenland that he did to Venezuela, that would effectively end NATO. And the only people I'll be smiling about that are the boogeymen that he invited to the Board of Peace. Russia would love it, and China would love it if NATO had dissolved. But like I said, strange things, and it's only been an effing year. It's only been an effing year. That being said, guys, we do also have to head back to Minnesota, because why? Minnesota had a little bit of a problem, because I'm going to be honest, some white people really don't like protests, and only because this happened in a church. And who else but one of our favorite independent journalists, Don Lemon, just happened to catch the story.
This is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere. They don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual.
So right now it's kind of mayhem. We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them. Did they explain to you why they're here?
They did not.
They said that there is someone here in Easterwood, someone who is a member of ICE, and he's a pastor of the church.
Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left.
So this is what the First Amendment is about the freedom to protest.
There's a varying array of views in this church on politics of immigration. Recognize the complexity of the issue.
This shows you just how divided America is. When you look at the protesters here, and then you look at the people there who are praying, and you know what was the interesting thing? If these two groups could just get together, they might figure out what to do.
I don't necessarily agree with everything that's going on in the Twin Cities right now, but I don't think it's good to fight fire with fire. I think it's good to speak up. I think it's good to protest, but I think it's better to do it in a peaceful way.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch. This guy here, look, hugging his kid. And, you know, I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. They think you lost and this didn't accomplish anything, and you went into their house, the house of the Lord.
The reality is the house of the Lord is a place where love lives. It's not a place where you can have a pastor masquerading as the director for the field office of ICE.
And she's right. Now, for all those that don't know, this church they're talking about that they did a protest in, the pastor, one of the pastors there is also the field director of ICE in Minnesota, which is the reason why they were protesting there. That also being said, of course, I think it was a pastor. Sorry, David Easterwood. I think it's right. Am I right? Yeah, David Easterwood. Right. The acting field director of St. Paul ICE office. That was the church that they were at. And what's so crazy about this is that people, and it never ceases to amaze me what people do. Especially the simple fact of the matter, guys, it's the oh, well, why are they protesting here? Really? It's a church. You shouldn't protest in a church. It makes us uncomfortable. We come to worship. This is a violation of the FACE Act. Oh, that got said. And for all those that know what the FACE Act is, and I'll read it because that way I can tell you. Because the FACE Act is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. Let me try it again. Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. This was done in 1994. It is a U.S. federal law that makes it a crime to use force, threats, or physical obstruction to block access to reproductive health care services or to intentionally damage facilities providing those services, including fertility clinics. It also protects individuals' First Amendment rights to worship at places of religious observance by prohibiting smaller disruptive tactics at churches, synagogues, and mosques, establishing federal penalties for violations. That's where a lot of these so-called quote-unquote conservative lawyers online, especially in social media, this is a violation of the FACE Act. Let me spell this out for you. Protests are not obstruction. You have the right to protest, just as you have the right to freedom of religion. And what amazes me so is that only certain, let's be honest, certain white people are feeling some type of way. I come to worship. I didn't come to hear about illegal immigrants having issues or people getting picked up. And at the same time, we, above all else, we just want to worship. Okay. But here's the thing about protests, folks. Protests, and you know what kills me every time I hear this? Protest, why can't it be peaceful? Because you won't pay fucking attention. That's why it's not. You want to know why protests aren't peaceful? Because you wouldn't pay attention. A peaceful protest is like watching a leaf blow in the wind. Sure, you know it's there. Sure, you know that's somewhere along the lines that's going somewhere. But then just as that leaves your point of view, you pay no longer attention to it. A protest like what they're doing in Minnesota and other various cities right now, that gets your attention. Why? They're face to face with the Gestapo ICE. They are face to face in politicians' faces. They are face to face with the border chief. They're face to face with ICE Barbie. That gets your attention because they're showing you the cruelty. And thank goodness for smart cameras, social media, and internet. They're showing you the brutality. They're showing you ICE going into houses with no warrants. They show you ICE posing as police, just basically detaining folks for no reason and without due process. They are literally showing you that ICE is being nothing peaceful. But they have been instructed by Nazi Stephen Miller to basically round up folks. And what's so crazy about it now is now they don't care. They're not rounding. It was never about illegal immigrants. It was about occupation, suppression, and antagonizing the public to where lethal force can be used so that the Insurrection Act could be implemented. It's all a plan. And that's all it is. But so miss me with the whole, why can't it be a peaceful protest? Would you pay attention if it was? And let's be honest, white folks, a lot of you wouldn't. A lot of you wouldn't pay attention until it hits at your front door, till it hits at your backyard, till it hits at your neighbor. That's when it has your attention. Or just like law enforcement's finding out, because ICE is going after law enforcement too. Now all of a sudden it's too much. And I find it funny where a woman getting shot in the face a little over 2 weeks ago doesn't seem to get everybody's radar, but a police officer that gets hemmed up by ICE, oh, now we have your attention. So do you see people, which kills me that, in the church, where church is supposed to be accepting, every religion out there seems to have the same basic principle, accepting of others different than you. Well, if they really wanted to protest, they should have done it in a church because we're trying to worship. You're trying to put your heads in the sand claiming you want to worship, but really you don't want to be reminded of the world that you live in. That's all that is. And at the same time, instead of you getting the message, what do? You feel insulted. You feel like your day is disrupted. You feel like you can't function. You have to explain to your kids, I'm sorry, kids, it's a protest because illegal immigrants or so-called illegal immigrants are getting picked up and harassed and sometimes killed by ICE agents that really have no business being an ICE agent. But, we just want to come in here and talk about Jesus. But, those protesters, they just didn't care. And it amazes me that every time you can protest peacefully. No, you can do peaceful assembly. Well, a lot of people get that wrong. You have the right to peacefully assemble and protest. Protests are not peaceful. Protests are active, loud, and disruptive. Why? Because those protests are designed to grab attention to where a lot of people wouldn't look if they were just sitting there saying kumbaya with flowers in their hair, literally pointing up rainbow flags. Oh, they're doing something. I don't know what it is, but it looks nice. Versus calling people out that literally are doing the work of a Nazi and yet have the unmitigated gall to be in church Sunday morning talking about love one another. Miss me with the bullshit. At the same time, because of that, the border chief, along with the FBI, are sending more people, more personnel to Minnesota. And again, this is no longer a operation to deport illegal immigrants. What we're seeing now is an occupation. And we all know how those occupations wound up and how they start and how they end.
Active duty troops are on standby for a potential deployment to Minnesota. Defense officials say 2 infantry battalions have pre-deployment orders amid violent protests against the federal immigration crackdown. Over the weekend, the governor mobilized the Minnesota National Guard, but troops haven't been deployed yet. Now the FBI is increasing its presence in Minneapolis, and the mayor says it feels like an occupying force. ABC's Jack Date has the details. Hi, Jack. The Department of Justice is investigating a disruption at a Minnesota church over the weekend. What's the DOJ saying about that?
That's right. Yesterday, during morning services at a St. Paul church, there was a disruption. A group of demonstrators came in and were protesting and chanting anti-ICE slogans in the middle of this worship service. Senior justice officials, including the Attorney General and the head of the Civil Rights Division, have said this is a version of intimidating Christians, and that they were interfering with their First Amendment rights and rights that are protected under what's called the FACE Act, which is an act that was designed to protect access to clinics, but also protects people in worship, in houses of worship in particular. And so they're investigating whether there are violations of the FACE Act and pledge to prosecute those demonstrators who they say are not protected under the First Amendment in that house of worship.
And the Department of Justice says it's not investigating the ICE officer who shot Renee Good, but multiple sources say it is investigating Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz and the Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. So what's the latest on that?
That's right. The Justice Department has been making claims, senior officials, that both the Governor Walz and Frey had in some way impeded law enforcement activities in Minnesota, and now they're investigating whether that occurred. It's a big escalation in the sort of multi-front effort to pressure both the political apparatus and the people of Minnesota.
All right, Jack Date, thank you.
And again, for the simple fact of the matter, quiet you. So again, that's what they want to do, folks. It's all about occupation. They realize and this is all, and honestly, it's been the plan all along. Because you notice, if they really did care about illegal immigrants, go to Texas. Over 2.1 million undocumented are there. But the grand scale of what you see in Minnesota, you're not going to see in Texas or Tennessee or Alabama or Georgia or Florida or Mississippi, North Carolina or South Carolina. You simply will not see it. Even though those are red states, even though there may be undocumented here, but because it's Democratic, what Taco and them want to do is occupy. Because if you can occupy the cities, eventually that means you can take over the state. Eventually that means you can declare martial law. And eventually you may even hinder the election. The same things that Maduro did in Venezuela, Taco may try to pull here. So instead of them going in and actually taking people out, what they might wind up doing is simply occupying it. Because again, Taco has said nobody can stop him, and the GOP won't lift a finger. And again, Democrats, you have 10 months. If I was the Democrats, I would literally be playing every one of Trump's actions, every one of his failed promises, every one of everything he's ever said or did, and then start showing what you're doing. What's your plan? Because the biggest thing is the Epstein files, which, by the way, Trump is still ducking, and the House committee wants to hold the Clintons in contempt for testifying. And Bill Clinton, already sat there and said, release the files. I got nothing to hide. Trump obviously does. But that's the thing. As we get closer and closer to the midterms, Democrats should be firing on all cylinders right now and letting women lead. Because I think it has been past time to allow women to take the lead in politics for a party. Because let's be honest, it's been a black woman that's been saving us the last couple of times now. Don't argue with the facts, it's true. But moving right along, guys. Again, this doesn't help for those that are looking for jobs because, well, December's job report says the same thing we all sat there and said. Nobody's hiring.
2025 is out. The report shows employers added 50,000 jobs in December, falling short of expectations. And the unemployment rate fell to 4.4% after November's historic high. This is the first report released on time since October's government shutdown paused data collection. It's also the first report since the Federal Reserve tried to boost hiring by cutting interest rates last month. Our Elizabeth Chelsea is here with a closer look at those numbers. So, Elizabeth, on the one hand, you have this low jobs number. On the other hand, the unemployment rate fell. So what does this say about the economy right now?
Yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag there, Diane. That 50,000 jobs added in December was below expectations, and it does confirm this overall cooling in job growth that we saw for the year of 2025. The unemployment rate coming down to 4.4%, that is good news. We had seen that rate at 4.6% in the month before. What that rate is all about is how many people who are trying to get a job and can't find one. So we want to see that rate going down. Right now, it's coming off of that 4-year high. When you kind of dig into the details of this report, Diane, what it shows us is there are a couple of sectors really driving job growth in the economy. One of them, and this has been the case all year long, is healthcare. There were 21,000 jobs added to the economy in the healthcare sector in December alone. Almost 2/3 of all job growth last year was from healthcare. And then another big driver last month was restaurants. So that's typical in the month of December. You see a lot more people out celebrating the holidays, food, restaurants, bars, hiring more people. But notably, when you look at those job losses, the retail sector actually did cut quite a few jobs last month. That is very unusual for that time of year, especially when you're thinking about general merchandise stores, warehousing. So we're going to have to look into why exactly that was the case for the month of December. Also, Diane, manufacturing, 8,000 more jobs lost in December. This caps off a really tough year for manufacturing jobs when you're thinking about kind of the overall economy. And big picture, when we look at job growth in the overall economy for last year, which we now have kind of the full picture of, this is, as one economist described to me, a frozen market. We did not see a ton of firing. Losses did not fall off a cliff, job losses, but we're also not seeing those kind of blockbuster hiring numbers that we had seen for many years coming out of the pandemic.
So could this lead to another rate cut?
We do have the Federal Reserve looking so closely at these jobs numbers this year. In the market, the initial market reaction, you're seeing futures trade slightly higher in expectation that this does pave the path for another rate cut from the Fed. The Fed wants to see the job market stay stable. It does not want to see a further weakening. And so rate cuts would kind of help support that. But at the same time, you do still have prices above where the Federal Reserve wants them. Wage growth is still higher, and that can contribute in some ways to higher prices. So this likely keeps the Fed on hold for its meeting this month. We're going to be looking at kind of the expectations for Fed meetings from there on out. A lot of economists, analysts say that the next likeliest possibility for a rate cut, Diane, would be at the Fed meeting in March.
So long story short, nobody's hiring. Jobs are lost. And again, how many more times we're going to sit there and it's the same story all over again? And all I can stand and say is this is the snowball effect of Taco. This is his snowball effect. His tariffs killed jobs. His tariffs killed jobs, slowed the economy. At the same time, unmitigated AI has had a lot of companies reduce their workforces and try to keep their profits high. So yes, in so many words, nobody's freaking hiring at all. So we really should not be surprised by that. But also what's surprising, guys, again, like I said, going back to Taco and the rest of the GOP will never claim fraud, waste, and abuse. Well, this story right here, which I want to talk about. So this is the Secretary of Labor, Chavez de Ramir. Now, I'm not going to apologize for screwing up her name. She's pretty much going to jail anyway. Because this Inspector General, Lori Chavez de Ramir, she basically used her position as a way to enrich herself, including travel fraud. She did spending sprees, specifically at strip clubs, taking multiple members, and pursuing a fellow employee that did not return her advances per se. And to the tune of almost $12 million that she has to account for. Again, misconduct Outside of the Secretary of Defense, never sober Pete Hegseth, meet the female version. And all the while, Republicans are being silent. She was appointed by Trump, and Republicans are silent. So what have we done in this podcast? I've shown 2 situations where they could have sat there and said, you know what? That happened. It is what it is. Let's remove them. And yet the GOP is silent as she's being investigated for misusing her position and funds that were available to her. Crazy, right? Well, here's also what's crazy. Do you guys remember this story just last year about RFK? And we knew this was coming. RFK suggesting that women taking Tylenol may cause autism in their children. We all remember this.
Secretary Kennedy, the amount or the significance this announcement will have on struggling American families, as you mentioned at the top of this. And secondly, I've spoken to a number of Republican senators actually about the linkage between pregnant mothers using Tylenol and this risk of autism or other health disorders in unborn children. And one prominent senator told me that the evidence there is weak and there's no relationship. Can you respond to that?
For Tylenol?
For Tylenol.
Okay, on your first question, I mean, there's a good example that we worked on recently. We recently put together an agreement in South Carolina and now some other states, the private insurers and for Medicaid and Medicare to pay for sickle cell anemia treatment. The cost of that treatment is $1 million. It cures sickle cell anemia, but it's $1 million. If we could get a brand name drug, I mean, if we can get a generic drug, a biosimilar that does the exact same thing for a fraction of the cost, we can make that treatment available in every state. It is right now. It is barely economic for the insurance companies because they think that maybe the treatment, the long-term treatment of somebody with sickle cell anemia, is going to cost more than that $1 million. But it's right on the borderline. So if we could cut that in half.
So I'm just going to stop it right there just because, number one, I swear that man needs to either turn on subtitles or just stop talking or get a translator. Because my God, you have to struggle that hard just to be heard. You should not. I'm sorry. If you are the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and you sound like that, I'm freaking concerned. But the reason why I bring that up, because remember that big old thing, and remember the fact that the makers of Tylenol had to come out and be like, our shit is safe. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Well, it's kind of funny where it's like, well, where's the data? Asking ye shall receive. Literally, researchers investigated and found no link between Tylenol and autism. A paper published Friday did not find any evidence for the claim that Tylenol use in pregnancy raises the risk of autism, ADHD, or intellectual disabilities. See, this is the reason why I kept saying. This is the reason why I keep saying RFK is not a physician, a nutritionist. He is not in the health and science industry. He has no experience. He is just a guy who had way too much time and apparently not enough medical help for his brain lesions or his voice to where he basically played anti-vaxxer. And if you're an anti-vaxxer, I don't like you. I don't. Unless you have a medical reason, and some do. And I can understand that. But if you don't have a medical reason why there are certain things that you can't do or medications that you can't take or immunizations you can't have, you don't have a medical reason outside of you just want to be a douche, honestly, frack you. That being said, Tylenol does not cause autism. Matter of fact, please, above all else, listen to your doctor because number one, they're trained. They're board certified. They did the medical school. They did the residency. And what I mean by medical boards, guys, I mean these men and women have to go to medical boards to prove what they know, to be certified and licensed. not only is it time consuming, it's not freaking cheap. So yes, I trust the doctors. Yes, I trust the science. Yes, I trust those who are experienced and certified and educated in those fields to help people like me. I will not listen to RFK, who honestly just needs to go play in whatever pond that he came from and just stay there where he won't harm anybody. But yes, it's been proven. I know we had to do it for the idiots, because some people like, well, I just think that. No, it doesn't cause it. Please sit down, have several seats, shut the frack up. Speaking of shutting the frack up, people are worried about, trying to put food on the table. The cost of food is high. Groceries are high. No matter how you cut the mustard, everything is going up. But I cannot believe that I'm going to be suggesting this. But one secretary within the Trump administration is suggesting a $3 meal for Americans. And I'll just play the video.
Saving solution for Americans that also follows new dietary guidelines. Watch this.
We've run over 1,000 simulations. It can cost around $3 a meal for a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, corn tortilla, and one other thing. And so there is a way to do this that actually will save the average American consumer money.
Yeah, I stopped it right there, because a piece of broccoli, a corn tortilla, and something else. Are you effing kidding me? That was Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins that suggested a $3 meal. And I'm just like, okay, Trump is getting a $300 million plus ballroom that he basically wrecked the east side of the White House for. $40 billion went to Argentina. And you're saying that for Americans, you've ran thousands of simulations. And what you came up with is a piece of broccoli, a corn tortilla, and something else. I don't know if you use Grok to run those 1,000 simulations, but stop completely. Because what they don't do, they're not addressing the cost of food. I know there are some farmers out there. There are some farmers, and I mean this ever so slightly. There are some farmers out there that are really trying their hardest not to, say well, you messed up. Well, we didn't know what Trump was going to do. Yeah, you did. You fell for the con man, not once, but twice. Farmers have been bailed out in both of Taco's presidential terms. At the same time, soybean farmers are looking at their crops basically lose profit because China's not buying anymore. And for a lot of people that don't know, our fruits come from overseas. Very few fruits are in the US now. But avocados, Mexico, the other fruits from Europe. And as we said earlier in this podcast, you don't want Europe to sit there and you don't want Europe to sit and do a persona non grata on the US. You definitely don't want that. Because if Europe decided to ban US goods from their shores, our economy would collapse in less than a month. Actually, I'd say it back. Our economy would collapse in 3 months. Because for a lot of people who don't know, we are not producers, we are consumers. And that only happened because, well, capitalism and greed. Capitalism and greed turned us from producers to consumers. And we are now dependent upon other countries in order to keep certain things on our tables. And above all else, instead of you addressing that problem or actually trying to help farmers, you want to sit there and say, let's go on the Hunger Games diet. No. See, a certain person did say let them eat cake, and she wound up losing her head. And that's not pun intended. Yeah, Marie Antoinette. Look it up. History's not kind. But two more stories, guys, before we get to our feel good segment. This one is brought up because, well, remember I sat there and tried not to joke about JD Vance, that couch fucker. possibly banging Erica Kirk, and now baby daddy to baby number 4 because his wife is now pregnant. I know I tried my hardest to make it not personal, but I can't stand the guy. He is literally a douche. But that being said, it was one thing about this next story that what the GOP also wanted was also in Project 2025, because much like The Handmaid's Tale, much like Stepford Wives, they want people to start having babies. Not because Elon Musk's mother said that please have babies because my son needs workers. No, they want to get back to a 1950s America to where the white population has increased. But you know what? I'll let them tell it.
Thinks Americans aren't having enough kids.
I want more babies in the United States of America.
And the Trump administration believes having kids starts with getting married, saying the, quote, traditional family unit has come under recent cultural attack. That's why the federal government is pouring money into marriage counseling programs, dubbed by some marriage boot camps.
I was skeptical at first because I'm like, we don't need to go to that. But once we went through the class, I learned a lot, and actually, I would do it again.
Tanja and Freddie Gaddis completed an 8-week class just after their wedding in 2024, where they dove deep on issues like how to communicate better.
You're a little bit more than a year in to the marriage. How's it going?
It's going well. Don't get us wrong now. It's not perfect, but it's perfect with us learning how to work through the disagreements.
The program they went to, run by Auburn University, funded in part by federal programs that have been around for a while. And now it's one of more than 100 that are receiving portions of a new 9-figure federal grant. President Trump is also now giving money directly to newborns in his 2025 budget bill, with so-called Trump accounts for long-term investments. And on top of that, the Heritage Foundation, authors of Project 2025, want the president to renew his vows with a new push, in their words, to save America by saving the family. Some of their ideas: discouraging online dating, direct payments for newlyweds, more tax incentives for married couples and kids, and yes, marriage boot camps. Not just funded, but run by the federal government, specifically by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Department of Health and Human Services.
People need to understand the importance of marriage.
The total cost of Heritage's plan? $280 billion over the next decade.
The modest investment, I think, will pay off tremendous dividends because we'll have a healthy, growing population in the best ideal circumstances.
He's talking about population because the U.S. may be staring down a growing shrinking problem, as some demographers warn that the country's population could decline soon, for the first time since the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. The U.S. fertility rate hit an all-time low in 2024. Now experts say a combination of the declining birth rate and the Trump administration's immigration crackdown is slowing population growth faster than expected. Data from Pew Research found that for the first time in 50 years, more immigrants are leaving the U.S. than coming in. It's why you're hearing about so-called pronatalist policies a lot more, pushed by people like Elon Musk, who has fathered at least a dozen children of his own.
And I think for most countries, they should view the birth rate as the single biggest problem they need to solve.
But some experts say policies need to go beyond paying for people just to have more babies. The director of the Carolina Population Center at UNC telling us in an earlier interview, investing in long-term support for families is just as important.
Keeping moms in the labor market is going to be important if we have fewer people overall, but also sort of investing heavily in young children to make sure that they are in safe childcare environments, that they are getting educational starts early in life.
More money for families has long been a priority for Democrats, with Republicans generally focusing on cultural issues.
I think if you really give people a sense of ownership in this country, a sense that they can build something, build a nest egg, build a family, that is the trick to reinvigorating the American dream.
Now, year 2 of Trump 2 may focus on both.
And John Allen is joining us now. So what's your sense, John, on reporting this out? Is this something that could get bipartisan support from Democrats too?
I think there are pieces of it that could get
bipartisan support. We've already seen some of that, the baby bonds that President Trump did in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. There's something he had talked about before, that something Kamala Harris had talked about on the campaign trail. Originally, I believe started with Cory Booker, the New Jersey Democrat. So I think there's definitely interest on the Democratic side in doing some of these pro-family things when you talk about expanding child tax credits, things like that. But the Heritage Foundation's price tag for its plan is $280 billion over a decade, which is a lot of money. And I think that most Democrats would like to see more resources devoted to some of the existing programs, particularly those that are aimed at the least advantaged in the country. And, what the Heritage Foundation has put out there does not necessarily do that.
Yes, because the Heritage Foundation wants to introduce the white population. Guys, okay, first and foremost, let me say this. I have nothing against marriage boot camps. I do believe if you do find somebody and marriage is the next step, congratulations. I highly recommend always do counseling, because you want to make sure that you are, like I said, marriage is a commitment. And also because the way they do divorce setups, they make it harder to get out of divorces. Not to say that you should think about that. I am saying, take the time, take the counseling, take the therapy, get to know each other. Marriage is constant work. Trust me, I know. That being said, what is scary is that Project 2025 wants to basically have this incentive to have more babies. And I've said on this podcast, ladies, if you are single, I do not blame you for just wanting to keep to yourself. I don't blame you. I don't blame women these days if you don't want to date, if you don't want to get married. Because why? The one thing that is not said from the Heritage Foundation is that they treat women like broodmares. Women don't have rights because they believe that they believe in the 1950s women should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, and that's what they believe. But at the same time, they want more children. That was basically the entire plot of The Handmaid's Tale, where literally women are not treated like human beings. They are treated like, again, broodmares. At the same time, it's this whole thing of just, well, we need to give incentive to women getting married and having kids in this society. I fear for my sisters. I fear for my wife. I fear for my daughter. I fear for my nieces. My niece, not nieces, sorry. Although I have nephew's niece. But what I'm getting at is I fear for every woman that I know, because they're not viewed. They should, but in the eyes of some, they don't have the autonomy over their bodies that they should have. It really should be their body, their choice. That's the end of it. I cannot tell you and of course, abortion always comes around. Abortion rights. Oh, will someone think of the children? Someone think of the unborn, while ignoring the fact that the woman can decide whether or not that she can carry the child or terminate the child. It's her choice. The choices and consequences are hers and hers alone. The fact that, again, people still think that you should be able to tell a woman what she should do with her body that you are not attached to is audacity at its finest. And even more so in this day and age, where a woman's rights, access to prenatal care, access to clinics, access to Planned Parenthood, access to the things that they should have, they don't have anymore. And let's not forget the fact that there is still SA going on, that there are still pedos out there, that there are still predators out there, and that it is harder for those victims of SA to come forward, because 9 times out of 10, their actual assailants never see the inside of a prison. At the same time, again, I don't blame women. And thankfully, I thank my wife for wanting to marry me. I am forever grateful for that. But I don't blame women who simply do not want to date, or simply don't want to marry, or simply don't want to have kids, because the society that we're in wants to roll back the clock to 1950 and sit there and say, well, we need you to have kids. our birth rates are declining. But then we'll offer incentive programs, which I find it amazing because before Taco came back into place, we did have incentive programs. Well, actually, before Taco, the first time we had incentive programs, we had tax breaks for the middle and lower classes. You want to buy, if you were a first-time homeowner, there was tax breaks. You had solar, tax break. If you were doing this, tax break. If you were doing that, tax break. If you're in the middle, if you're not doing so well in income and considered lower class, you got tax breaks here, here, and here. The rich were paying more. Now, granted, the corporate rate, the corporate tax wasn't as high as it should have been. It really should be in the 60s. It really should be in the 60%, but that's neither here nor there. But there were tax breaks for the middle and lower class. There were incentives. The child tax credit was actually fairly high. So income tax, getting your refund back actually help families. Actually gave them a little bit of a breather. There was things put in place. Here's my thing. Why do we need the Heritage Group in Project 2025 to do that? Where, of course, he said, well, there may be some things of that program they can get behind. All I can sit there and say is this. If that was the case, why isn't it being done now? And I hate to say this, but with the current administration, there is no profit in helping the middle and lower class, because the rich have already given their tithe to the golden fat ass cow. And what is he doing? Repaying them. We're seeing it already in Venezuela. We're already seeing it in Venezuela where oil companies are already gathering to see how can we plunder Venezuelan oil. And the Qatar bank is basically hoarding the profits from there. Venezuelan oil will never see U.S. shores, but I guarantee that money is somehow seeing a Trump account. Again, if they would do it, they would, but they won't. Not this administration. And I should not expect Democrats to see otherwise. Because again, had not 8 Democrats a long time ago last year not caved, the government would be shut down and the Republicans would have broke. But 8 Democrats decided, oh, well, we're going to promise to talk about the Obamacare subsidies. We'll promise a vote. Doesn't mean you'll get it. And what happened? They shot it down. And again, eventually they did vote to extend some things. But now with our way of funding the government coming back up again, now ICE is the ban the existence. Do you see what I'm getting at here, folks? The simple fact of the matter is this administration does not care until it is election time. Because Taco does what he does best. A con man that goes on the road to sit there and say, I've done all these things to convince you life is better under me versus anybody else. And yet the idiots will believe it. Don't believe me? How else would Trump have been elected on 2 terms? Over women. Over 2 qualified women. Which tells you off the bat that America, number one, America, for a lot of people, will not follow a Madam President. And number 2, you would rather follow an idiot. You would rather follow an idiot of a man than an intelligent woman. And that alone screams volumes. But we're going to go and move on to our Feel Good segment, guys, because usually how the Frack got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes making you faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. And we will leave you guys out in some good vibes. Hopefully this next story will do this yet. About a family of Kyrie Jackson. Again, for all those that don't know, former rookie for the Minnesota Vikings that was killed in a car crash by a drunk driver. They did receive a surprise on Good Morning America.
Jackson, the extraordinary young man and Minnesota Vikings rookie who was tragically killed in a car accident in the summer of 2024 when he was hit by a drunk driver. His parents, Ebony and Raymond, and his brother Colston are here to tell us about the way they are carrying on his legacy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sorry it's under the conditions, and we are so sorry for your loss, but it's also something hopeful, a very hopeful message. I'm from Minnesota. I know how hard this hit Raymond, the community there. Tell us more about your son, Kyrie, and his legacy.
Yeah, Kyrie was a 11, energetic kid that loved to run free. He loved his family, loved being around family, friends. He loved to play sports, any sport of any sort. So, but of course, football was his love.
Yeah.
He was just a helpful kid. He was just always around. He just loved doing the things that he loved to do with his family.
And Colston, what was Kyrie like as a big brother?
It was the best because we used to play the game together and we used to play basketball and he used to have the best food spots.
Absolutely. So, Ebony, tell us a little bit about the foundation you have now created in his honor to make the world a better place in his blessing.
I think we see the foundation as like love in action because Kyrie had such a huge heart. He had like this quiet giving heart. So the goal of the foundation is to continue who Kyrie was and what he wanted to do in the community. When Kyrie got drafted, the first thing he said was, I want to start a foundation, and what the name of it and what should the name of it be. So when we got the award from the Vikings, it was just like such a happy moment for us because now we have this grant and we're able to give away more scholarships, like start awareness about the driver safety campaign, help kids with school supplies and football equipment. So we're just doing what Kyrie wanted to do.
It's divine, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And you mentioned that the Vikings gave you that award. They gave you their Changemaker award.
They did.
Ebony, that must have been quite a moment for you, emotional in so many levels.
It was surprising. They were on FaceTime with us. We thought they were calling us to show us a painting, and then they told us about the award. And for us we just established the award we just established the foundation less than a year ago, and to be recognized for it, it felt really good.
I bet. Well, we hope that we can give you a little more feel good.
Okay.
We want to surprise you. We're going to take it one step further from the Vikings. We're catching the pass, if you will. And this time it's on behalf of the NFL. They love what you're doing. They see you. And they really want to celebrate Kyrie by having you guys at the Super Bowl. You guys are going to the Super Bowl this year in San Francisco. Here are your tickets. You don't need to carry those with you.
Right.
We have you covered. Like we want you to know. They want you to know.
You were surprised.
The NFL. Just wanted to hear, Dad, what your thoughts are about this.
Man, this is big. This is huge. We love it. This is something that we always talked about. Kyrie loved the game. We loved the game of football. That was our bond. Colston as well. This is crazy because before we were Minnesota fans, we were me and Colston are Patriots fans. So we're hoping that that would be great. That would be a good connection.
Still a chance.
We're still Minnesota now, but of course, we're still going to root for the Patriots as well. But this is huge. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you so much.
Colston, what do you think about that? You gonna wear those cool sneaks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoy every moment of it. And thank you so much for continuing the great work on behalf of your son.
Thank you so much.
And
This is great.
All right. We'll see you at the game.
That's a nice gesture. Now, of course, for all those that know, Kyrie Jackson was killed by a drunk driver. So, again, a very enigmatic young man that did have a bright future ahead of him, but at least the family is still carrying on with his legacy with the Kyrie Foundation. At the same time, who doesn't like Super Bowl tickets? Although right now that's kind of up in the air as far as who's going to be playing, but that's neither here nor there. So we're going to rock with that. That being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate it. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because, well, How the Frack We Got Here can be seen on APR TV. It's an app that's on the Roku channel as well as the Amazon Fire app. You can also check that out as well as other shows that do show on APR TV. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Also, BlurredStation.com. Again, I've talked about this streaming service for 2 years now. Movies, television, anime, you name it, they have it. BlurredStation.com, $10.99 a month to stream Blurred Station, and Blurred Station can be streamed on all smart devices. Definitely check that out. Also, check us out on YouTube at How the Frack We Got Here. If you type in How the Frack We Got Here podcast, that pops up, and you see my mug there. Definitely like, share, and subscribe, guys. Hit the notification button so anytime that we do go live or when there's a new episode uploaded, you can definitely get it from there. But trust me, we need your support, guys, because we cannot do any of this without you. So thank everybody that actually did subscribe. And like I said, if you definitely want to keep up with us, we would appreciate it. Definitely like, share, subscribe, notify, and hang on. Because like I said, it's gonna be a long ass 10 months. Also, You can check us out on iHeartRadio. You can check us out on Apple Play. You can check us on Apple Play. You can check us out on Apple Podcast, on Spotify. Basically, everything under How the Frack We Got Here. You can definitely check us out there and then basically listen to us by audio or video, however you want to get your podcast. Also, myself, Black_Spartan615 is my personal social. You can follow me there. Usually talk to everybody. Just don't make it weird. I'm going to get into the habit of blocking people and, of course, going from there. Also, guys, like I said, please out there, above all else, protect your mental, protect your peace, find your strength, check on your friends, call and text, let them know that, make sure they're doing all right. But like I said, everybody's in a weird place right now. And like I said, this is only 1 year, but definitely protect your mental above all else. I cannot stress enough that there are plenty of services out there, numbers that you can take advantage of before you take that last resort to self-delete. Please don't do that. You are wanted, needed, accepted, and above all else, you still have a verse to basically present to that song we call life. Also, if you are in the South or in the Midwest or Midwest going toward the South and the East, guys, look, Mother Nature's gonna throw us a curveball this week. Please, above all else, stay safe. I know for a lot of people, think we're not gonna get snow, we're not gonna get ice. Look, there's gonna be some rough days coming up. So please, guys, if you have the ability to stay home, please stay home. If you have to go out, please be safe. Use your head. Nothing is no job or anything else is worth getting out there, getting yourself stuck or worse. Please be smart. Please use your head. Please do not go in the stores and buy up everything. Leave stuff for everybody else. It's only going to be a couple of days. You'll be fine. Just saying. But the last thing I'll say about the Frack We Got, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We're simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past, making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman as Federal Reserve Governor, and maybe one day electing our first Black woman to be called Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's when we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up in our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we'll get through this. Live long and prosper, guys. Peace.